Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. Welcome to Policy and Rights, the show about government policy and human rights. Welcome back to Policy and Rights here on Depictions Media Radio. I'm your host, Michael Clogs. It is no fun being marginalized. I will tell you that it is no fun being bullied. It is no fun being told that you are not good enough. And I'm bringing this up for a reason. While I am male, I cannot tell you all of the experiences of being a woman because I have never experienced them. But what I can tell you about is my experience of being marginalized, my experience of being told that I wasn't good enough because of how I looked. And when we look around our world today, that we find a lot of inequalities because of people not looking the way that privileged people actually look. And many people say, but Michael, you've risen above, you have your own podcast, you have your own production team, you have your own production company. You broadcast around the world, and you have a blogging news source. What do you mean that you are marginalized? Well, what I mean by I am marginalized, what I mean is how many more networking groups that I have to go to in order to achieve what I need to achieve? How much better did I have to be than my competition in order just to be seen as I'm good enough? These are the types of things that I'm talking about, where maybe certain tools were held back. And this is what is going to be talked about in this next conversation that was recorded by from the United Nations, as they're talking about a women's event in media and making innovative technology work for women and girls. That you're going to hear some really out there statistics about who's using the internet and who is able to use the internet freely and who is not. You're going to hear some statistics that are going to sound lopsided, and that tools are being withheld from women and girls, and they have to work that much harder to succeed just to be able to reach the normal standards. And that shouldn't exactly be. The idea is to actually find equality so that we all can succeed. Nothing is taken away from one group and nothing more is given to another group. That we are all learning to uplift each other, and that we're all learning to find that equal path down the road. So why don't we listen to what is being said at this CSW event for women leaders in media.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jane Tillman Irving. Welcome to this very important session on women leaders in media, making innovative technology work for women and girls. Very important issue, important to all of us. My name is Jane Tillman Irving. I'm the immediate past president of the New York Press Club, a retired reporter, decades as a 35 years at WCBS radio, television, other radio stations, and I've been a professor at the Graduate School of Journalism at Columbia University. And my point is in telling you all that tech was different when I started out. Can you say reel-to-reel tape recorders, cassette recorders, a payphone on the street to file your story, and if you wanted to find out something, you went to a book, usually called an encyclopedia. And I also want to tell you that this was not when dinosaurs were roaming the earth. We were not, flying on pterodactyls or anything of that nature. Some of these technologies go back to the mid-90s. So it still comes down, though, to the same thing. Getting the story, telling the truth, doing it as fast and as accurately as possible. That's journalism, that's storytelling, that's whatever we do as women in media. It's the same thing. But thank goodness technology has increased, has improved, and we are carrying computers in our pockets that even as recently as the 70s the 80s could not even have been imagined. So, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, some of you young ones, when I say reel-to-reel tape recorders or cassettes, ask your mother. But it's very important, though, that as tech changes, that we as women not be left behind. And that is the purpose of our panel today. We're talking with a number of women who have been innovators and leaders in the technological field. And we're going to start with Leah. Yes, we have changed our lineup, and things change very quickly. Leah Mann, Communications and Community Management Officer for the International Telecommunications Union's Broadband Commission for Sustainable Development. She's going to talk to us about the role of ITU in its digital sphere and AI. Very important, AI. It may replace us all, but not yet.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Irving. And thank you to the UN Department of Global Communications and the International Association of Women in Radio and Television for hosting us today. Esteemed colleagues, we are here today because digital technologies are an essential pathway to gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls. When women and girls have access to innovative technologies, society as a whole benefits. As I'm sure many of you have heard and discussed this week, there's a large gap in gender parity when it comes to the use of digital technologies. Let me share some key numbers with you. Today, approximately 5.3 billion people, or 2/3 of the world's population, use the internet, leaving 2.7 billion people offline. Many more who count as connected cannot use it meaningfully in the ways that you or I take for granted because of issues like lack of affordability or an unreliable connection. According to ITU data, globally, 69% of men use the internet compared to just 63% of women, resulting in nearly 260 million more men than women using the internet just last year. And while women account for roughly half of the global population, they represent a disproportionate and increasing share of the offline population, outnumbering male non-users by 18%. The gap in digital skills also continues to expand, creating an urgent and specific need for programs, policies, and advocacy promoting equal access to digital skills education, technology, and services specifically for women and girls. ITU's estimate indicates that women and girls are 25% less likely than men to know how to leverage digital technology for basic purposes. Globally, girls are less likely to participate in STEM subjects, areas of study that often spark an interest in innovative technologies. And according to UNESCO, female students represent only 35% of all students enrolled in STEM-related disciplines in higher education, and in addition to which, women who enter STEM professions leave in disproportionate numbers as compared to men. ITU, as the UN Specialized Agency for Information and Communication Technologies, works collaboratively with our members and partners to build programs that have a measurable, lasting impact on the gender-digital divide to ensure that everyone has meaningful connectivity. We raise awareness and promote the active participation of women and girls in ICT and STEM-related education so that they have the tools to pursue careers in these fields. Over the years, ITU has led several programs and initiatives to engage women and girls more closely in the global digital transformation. One example is the ITU-led International Girls in ICT Day, coming up on April 27th, a flagship global effort to raise awareness, empower, and encourage girls and women to pursue studies and careers in STEM. Since its launch in 2011, more than 377,000 girls and young women have taken part in over 11,000 celebrations in 171 countries. In addition, ITU, in partnership with UN Women, GSMA, and the ITC, lead a coalition called Equals. This is a multi-stakeholder partnership with the goal of bridging gender digital divide by empowering women and girls to become creators, users, and leaders in the technology field. Equals produces reports, houses a digital skills hub, which is a platform for locating educational resources and projects for women and girls, and hosts an intergenerational dialogue between women leaders in tech and young women, among many other excellent programs. Finally, a more recent initiative is called Partner to Connect, or P2C. P2C is a multi-stakeholder alliance to foster meaningful connectivity and digital transformation globally, with a focus on, but not limited to, the hardest to connect communities. Since its launch in 2021, P2C has received over 500 pledges valued at over 29 billion projects around the world with submissions from over 200 countries, almost half of which focus on digital inclusion. Notwithstanding these efforts, no entity can close the gender-digital divide alone. Multi-stakeholder partnerships are critical for reaching gender equality. Just last week, Ms. Doreen Bogdan-Martin, who happens to be the first woman Secretary General of the International Telecommunication Union in its 158 years of existence, called on all stakeholders to unify their efforts on 3 key actions to help close the digital gender divide. First, to get girls into STEM early and empower them with digital skills. Second, to ensure women and girls have access to tech and base decisions on data. And third, to give women a seat at the digital table, making gender equality a must in every organization. The media has an important role to play in promoting gender equality by combating stereotypes and showcasing the accomplishments of women in tech and serving as a platform for them to share their stories. We must use language and imagery that is inclusive and empowering for everyone. We must encourage young women to see themselves as leaders in technology, and that starts with providing them with visible role models and supporting their ambitions. Eliminating gender stereotypes and promoting women's equal participation in technology is a collective responsibility. We must work together to ensure that women have access to the resources and support they need to succeed in the digital world. Thank you.
Thank you. Our format today is going to be, we will have presentations from all of our panelists, followed by a question and answer session. In order to activate your microphone, there's a white button to the right, and when you are called upon, that's how you will be able to ask your question. But that comes a little later. Our next speaker is Dr. Michelle Ferrier, the president of the International Association of Women in Radio and Television, and she is the executive director of Media Innovation Collaboratory.
Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Michelle Ferrier, and I'm the Executive Director of the Media Innovation Collaboratory and founder of the project Trollbusters, which is an online technological service to support journalists who are experiencing online harms through our technologies and our services. A little bit of background, though, on who I am might help in understanding the context in which I build and the work that I do. When I was in high school, the age of some of the people in the room here, I was able to participate in a program at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center for emerging young scientists. I was selected out of my school for this program, which was basically a program for disadvantaged children of color to be able to experience STEM careers directly working with scientists at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. At the time, I was into science fiction and I wanted to be an astronaut when I grew up. Ultimately, though, my goal became to be a cultural ambassador and use technological tools to unite people. And that's what the approach that I take to the work that I do in building technological spaces. Some of the work that we do at the Media Innovation Collaboratory is about helping journalists, media workers, and communicators understand the technological environment, understand the digital world and how to navigate it, as well as creating curriculum for young people to help them understand their role as digital citizens and how to create their digital identity and a platform for powerful voice. Some of the work that we've done recently has been in Ethiopia, working to build an independent media sector of journalists united across the country to support each other as well as to support their communities in providing vital local news and information. This is key to one of the key criteria I think that we need in terms of building for the future, which is a collaborative space where we have people of diverse backgrounds and experiences at the table when the products themselves are being built. If we could advance to the next slide, please. And so the work that we do uses a variety of different processes, from human-centered design to design thinking to community-centered development, where we're putting the people in our communities at the center of our work. What you're seeing is some of the graphic recording work that came out of our workshop recently, this past February in Addis Ababa. And we use visuals as a part of our work because the technology, visual is ascendant when we look at our technologies right now, and memes and other types of things are providing people with information, entertainment, and other types of communications. As journalists, we're using these tools to try and reach our communities and provide them with information, but also to utilize the experiences and knowledge of our community in order to be able to build better tools and ways of communicating with them. Next slide, please. And so part of what we need to do in terms of ensuring that women and girls are at the table is providing opportunities to collectively work together, create programs where they are given the skills to be able to level up and develop their digital culture skills, as well as to understand how the technologies themselves work so that they can leverage the power of those technologies to be able to affect change in their communities. Next slide, please. The work has been distributed in a variety of different formats, key to the strategies for creating voice and power and amplifying our issues around awareness of gender-based violence and other types of issues specific to women and girls. Our magazine, Toxic Avenger magazine, specifically looks at the digital harms in our spaces, helps people to understand the technological function of algorithms, of the platforms, and how they might be able to be manipulated and used for harm, as well as how you might be able to protect yourself in this work. This award-winning magazine has provided analysis around the globe of online harms, threats against journalists, and the challenges that they face as women in the in-between, carrying the stories of our communities to the public. And so in that space, in the in-between, our women journalists are being threatened both online and offline as they're trying to shape and form the stories that we all live out of as women, as men, as humans on our planet. Next slide, please. Some of the work that we've done also has been deeply with looking at young people and helping them to understand the tool that they use in their hands. As a college professor, I recognize that a lot of my students have phones and don't understand how data gets from one place to the other around the globe. And so we developed a curriculum that takes students from how the internet works all the way through to understanding situational awareness, how you connect on the web, understanding social influencers and how it's measured, understanding inside the black box of the algorithms and how they are built and coded and how they are used and can be manipulated to create biases and harms against individuals. So as we're looking to build technologies, we have to look to the intersectionality of the different persons that we're addressing in our design thinking to make sure that our solutions aren't going to cause secondary harms to populations within our audiences. Next slide, please. Some of the work that we're doing is working with college students, high school students, and others in a collective way to help them not only train them on the digital skills so that they can level up, but also use them to develop as peer educators, actually developing to have them develop the tools to help teach their colleagues and peers about digital skills. Our Level Up campaign, our Great Escape competition, is one where students build escape room modules where they can test and in a sandbox online test their digital skills in trying to solve the puzzles online. I think a key to part of our strategies for developing technology has to be that we make sure that all of the folks are in the room as our technology is developed. Next slide, please. And so as a part of the work that I do with our International Association of Women in Radio and Television, our strategy is to use the technologies to pull together the resources of our community from across the globe. We represent over 400 women journalists, media workers, and communicators in 55 countries and 14 chapters around the world. And in many of these communities, we are journalists dealing with conflict, climate change, and gender-based violence, all of which intersectionally involve and impact women disproportionately. And so in our work, we're looking to technologies to create a digital safe house, where we've done in the Philippines and in other places, where we are able to create a resource hub, coaching and support for journalists who are undergoing attacks online, and helping to direct and navigate them to resources to be able to help mitigate and lessen some of the harms that they might experience. Also, we're using the technologies to be able to deliver education, using meme journalism, if you'd like to call it that, or other social types of journalism in order to be able to intersect our publics where they are. And so the Generation Zeitgeist curriculum you see here comes with visual wall posters that can be hung in schools and other different types of educational institutions, short TikTok videos that help explain in teachable moments and intersect you just as you are getting ready to post something on TikTok, and helping you understand the algorithms behind a platform like TikTok that is being under fire currently here in the United States because of some of the spying, particularly of journalists using that particular platform. And so our goal through all of these strategies is to make sure that we are using the technologies to educate, to inform, to collaborate, and to ensure that we are co-creating our technologies and innovations with the communities that we are serving. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ferrier. We're now going to hear from Dr. Patrice Johnson, the Chief Program Officer of Black Girls Code.
Thank you. Thank you. So it is a true joy to be here with all of you at the UN today with like-minded leaders who are working toward equity and who see an equitable future. My name is Patrice Johnson. I bring you greetings from Detroit, but I am very proud to represent Black Girls Code. Our name alone is quite a bold statement. Black Girls Code. It simply means that Black girls are genius, that they can build, create, and lead in a way that is innovative and creates change. In our work, we are putting Black girls first in technology. Since our inception, we've supported and provided a safe space for over 30,000 girls here in the U.S. and in South Africa. And while we intend on expanding, over 96% of the girls in our program say that they've learned a new coding skill, while 78% say that they would like to have a career in computer programming. Where in the world are people intentionally putting women and girls, particularly Black girls, first? We aim to do so and to use technology as a tool not only to spark their curiosity and their interest, but to encourage their leadership, their innate, natural leadership. Recently, CNN reported that there are several women tech leaders who are transitioning. They are ready to retire, and who could blame them? And my question for all of you is, who will then take their place? I submit Amaya, Madison, Ife, who are here today, and all Black Girls Code students. Please give them a round of applause. They've been in our program, some since first grade, and I assure you they are more than capable to be the next tech leaders. Our programming challenges their critical thinking and inspires their leadership journey. We watch as they learn how to work together as a team during hackathons and create tech solutions for everyday problems, even creating mental wellness apps. In all of this, I will promise you that the greatest experience as a leader is watching them in their joy. It is infectious. It is enough to fill up an entire room, even a room here at the UN. In a world where girls who look like me must navigate the intersection of race, gender, and class, we see this as an opportunity to do the impossible, to not only provide rigorous technical knowledge in web and app development or art and music coding, but to empower girls to be problem solvers and create stronger economies. Thus, I tricked you. The work is not simply tech. The work is social justice. One of my most treasured moments as a leader in this organization is asking myself the question, why Black Girls Code? Why Black Girls Code? And ask that question multiple times. To teach Black girls how to code, but why? To challenge the tech ecosystem, but why? Because if we can get Black girls to challenge tech, we can challenge every other industry. But why? Because if we inspire the liberation of Black girls, we inspire the liberation of everybody. So, technology is simply the creative avenue for social justice and for change. And at Black Girls Code, we are boldly doing our part by letting the world know that Black girls like Amaya, Madison, and Ife are genius. Thank you.
About which we had no doubt, but we are delighted to have it reinforced. Now we're going to hear from Dr. Diana Yekacha, Professor Yelacha, I beg your pardon, professor in the film department of Brooklyn College. She's going to talk about the highlight of the role of media and technology in human rights and the intersection between media, screen technology, and trauma.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your introduction, and thank you to the organizers for having me among this esteemed peers and colleagues. I will be speaking, as Jane mentioned, on media, screen technologies, and trauma from a human rights perspective. I'm a film and media scholar and educator, and I'm thinking through these important questions from a theoretical perspective that includes ethics and ethical approaches to technologies. Depending on who invents, creates, or develops new technologies, they inherently become differently accessible, available, usable, or even attuned to the needs of different social groups, women included, or should we say women and girls most often excluded. For instance, photography and film are nowadays not new technologies, but they once were. And speaking of the importance of who works on the interventions or inventions of new technologies, we nowadays know that for many decades, photo and film cameras and lenses were perfected in such a way so as to decidedly favor and better capture lighter skin tones. This privileging has embedded in and therefore inherent to the camera technology itself. We see the same scenario playing out all over again with facial recognition technology, for example, which cuts across both racial and gender lines. This is why it is imperative that any new and emerging technologies be developed by as many diverse groups as possible and with diverse and inclusive sets of concerns from the start. Speaking of film, once being a new technology, let me tell you a quick story. Any film history textbook will tell you that the Lumiere brothers invented cinema in 1895, even though many other people were working on this invention at the same time, including at least one woman, Alice Guy Blaché, who is rarely mentioned in film history textbooks, but who was an early film pioneer and made the very first known fictional film and fantasy film, The Cabbage Fairy, 1896. She is a hidden figure, as women have often been throughout the history of technological development, always there, always contributing, but their work and contributions systematically ignored, dismissed, or erased from history books altogether. This is how patriarchy works. Some achievements and experiences are systemically overrepresented and others underrepresented, if not entirely erased. I use the term hidden figure, so you may as well draw a connection to the film of Hidden Figures, which is about black women doing amazing science at NASA in the face of racism and segregation. I will pivot to our contemporary media landscape and technology and consider screen technologies and trauma in particular. Why trauma? I'm interested in the question of whose stories and whose experiences tend to be rendered visible and whose invisible in today's landscape of digital oversaturation with screen technology. Cameras and screens are everywhere, but not everyone's story gets seen. Related to this is the relationship with screens and their ability or inability to aid us in the ethical imperative to bear witness to trauma, atrocity, discrimination, and other forms of suffering of individuals and groups across the globe. How do we make digital screen technologies, our phones, tablets, computers, etc., aid us in bearing witness in ethical ways? What do I mean by ethical ways of bearing witness? As Susan Sontag has stated, looking at the images of human suffering, and I will quote from her, "To set aside the sympathy we extend to others beset by war and murderous politics for a reflection on how our privileges are located on the same map as their suffering and may, in ways we might prefer not to imagine, be linked to their suffering, as the wealth of some may imply the destitution of others, is a task for which the painful, steering images supply only an initial spark. Meaning, it is not enough to merely look at these images and stories of suffering or to know about them. To merely look is to risk perpetuation, the upholding of the status quo, even normalization and omnipresence of suffering that may lead to eventual indifference. What one does with the experience of bearing witness, what one does in the aftermath of it, that is the question. This is where the ethics are. I'm interested in the best practices of engaging the digital media technology landscape towards ethical witnessing that leads to meaningful action, not passive resignation. When we talk about the trauma and pain of others, we need to note that even with today's omnipresence of cameras and screens, the suffering of certain populations is still unseen, rendered invisible, or not even considered suffering, because these groups are not recognized as fully human subjects to begin with. Their lives are not grievable, as theorist Judith Butler would say, which means not able to be grieved. With the ongoing devastating war in Ukraine, I took note of the fact when the war started that many in the media focused their disbelief on the fact that this was happening in Europe. I'm a survivor of the Bosnian War, and even though I was too young to know it at the time, I now know that the same or similar discourses were circulating around the war in Bosnia in sharp juxtaposition to the genocide taking place in Rwanda. The clear implication being that it is more shocking to see white European lives lost as opposed to non-European, non-white lives. We need to urgently decolonize the digital media landscape from such deeply rooted and deeply troubling assumptions. We need to embed in the very creation of new technologies a decolonizing mission that will in turn become inherent to them. AI, which has been mentioned, is increasingly a major factor at the intersections of media, science, technology, art, and entertainment. As researcher Ishwar K. Puri recently stated, and I quote, "Our students are going to use this technology and we need to teach them how to use it responsibly. We need to harness the power of AI for the public good," end quote. Also recently, an LA Times opinion piece asked, is it time to start considering personhood rights for AI chatbots? There are going to increasingly be debates about this. If new technologies, including digital media, cameras, screens, and AIs, are not decolonized from the assumptions about some human lives not even being considered lives, and if they are not harnessed towards the greater public good, which includes ethical forms of bearing witness, ethical ways of being in the world, and creating meaningful action, we may well soon indeed see a time where certain AIs will gain more personhood rights than many vulnerable human populations have across the globe, women and girls included. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yalacha. I want to just point out that we heard this again in the coverage of the war in Ukraine. An employee of a major network announced that it was so surprising that this was taking place in a civilized country, as if all those other wars were among uncivilized people and therefore their due because they are third world, not like us, etc. And may I point out that that person is still employed. Remarks next from Mia Shadand, CEO of Lighthouse 3 and founder of Women in AI Ethics Initiative.
Thank you, Jane. Right. Can you all hear me? No.
A little louder, right there. Just lean forward a bit there.
Is this better? All right. It's wonderful to be here today. This is my first time at the UN, and I think for some of you as well. So it's an exciting day. I'm absolutely honored to be here with my esteemed colleagues. I got goosebumps, Patrice, Dr. Johnson, when I heard you talk. And it's wonderful to see the future sitting right here in the room with us. I'm Mia Shadand. I'm the CEO of Lighthouse 3. I'm the founder of Women in AI Ethics. I started in the tech industry at eBay. eBay, as some of you might recall, was bigger than Amazon at one time. As Jane said, it was a very different time. Facebook was the new kid on the block, if you can believe that. And Netflix used to send out DVDs. You know those circular things? They used to go out in the mail. I was recruited by Google. Coincidentally, it was my last corporate role. I managed the community team. And after I left, the reason I left Google is as a single mother and as an immigrant, the tech industry is a very tough place. It's hard to manage the balance between life and work. And it's still the holy grail that people are seeking today. I didn't have the support system that a lot of folks take for granted for working mothers in this country. So I left because I realized that no amount of leaning in is going to change the systemic issues that women, especially women of color, women without privilege, face in the tech industry. So that was when I started Lighthouse 3. It's an emerging technology consulting and advisory firm based in California. And I lived in Oakland before I moved to New York. I also started hosting tech meetup groups. So these were small community events, free, and we would meet in a coffee shop. And I would bring in pizza, I would pay for the food, and we would sit there and just discuss what's latest in the technologies. And my goal was simple. How do we get people outside of the tech bubble to get an insider view of what's happening in technology? Because so many people are left out of those conversations. And from a small coffee shop, we grew to hundreds and then thousands. And we got sponsors from Microsoft and Google and IBM, and we got speakers from all these companies who would come and join us. And there was one thing I noticed as I'm hosting these events. There are no women. The technology conversations are always dominated by men. And it's a well-known fact. If you ask anyone in the tech industry, they admit it, yes, this is a problem. And they point to the STEM pipeline. And they say there are not enough women in STEM. There are not enough women who are qualified. So it was around 2018. And as you may recall, Dr. Timnit Gebru and Dr. Joy Bulwini came out with Gender Shades. It was a seminal study which showed that facial recognition technologies do not work as accurately on people with dark skin. So I dug around a little bit more, and I realized that it wasn't that women weren't qualified or there weren't women in STEM. They were just being overlooked. That was the year I published the first 100 brilliant women in AI ethics list. People were stunned. People were shocked. Because all they knew were these 5 women who worked in the space. And they said, "You're saying there are 95 more?" I said, "There are many more." And what the purpose and the mission of Women in AI Ethics is to highlight that we have those hidden figures in our communities, in our workspace. They're with us. They're in this room right now. The real question is, are they being recognized? Are they being recognized and rewarded for the work that they're doing? So in 2014, the tech companies started publishing their diversity reports. And I'm all in favor of transparency, right? Who isn't? We love transparency. So we found out that we have not made much progress in the tech workspace when it comes to diversity. Black employees as a percentage of the tech industry workforce is still in single digits. And I'm glad that I'm working with colleagues. I'm sitting here right here with folks who are trying to change that. But even when it comes to women, women have made progress. But even then, they are underrepresented in tech. We know there are a lot of women who leave the workforce like myself, and we start our own companies, which is great, but the venture capitalists, the people who fund these companies, these startups, are also white men. And research has shown that minority-led teams do really well. They deliver more results, they are better performing, but the folks who run the VC firms apparently don't agree because only less than 2% of the total VC funding goes to women. Less than 1% goes to Black founders. So those are very hard things to get over. These are really hard challenges that no matter of leaning in is going to solve, which is why we exist, why our organization exists, to help women break those barriers. So let's summarize the challenges right now that we are trying to address. One is the reason you see this technological gap, the diversity gap, is because women are not in the room. They're not in the room, they're not invited. Even when they're invited, they're expected to have really high qualifications. A lot of women that we host at our events are women who work in this field, have multiple degrees. There are many advanced degrees, but the badge of honor in the tech industry is a Stanford dropout. But that only works if you're a white male. And then, last but not the least, women's needs are not considered. So first, they're not in the room, then they're not heard, and then you have to be ultra-qualified to even get in. But once you have the seat at the table, how do you make sure that the technology you're building reflects your needs? A lot of technologies that we talked about facial recognition. We have deep fakes, which is where you can superimpose anyone's face onto anyone's body, so you can see the implications for women. There's tracking, there's surveillance, which impacts women more than men. So there are a lot of technological innovations which are supposed to help us, which are supposed to take us forward, but they're leaving a large section, 50% of humanity, behind. Okay. So how do we change this? So Women in AI Ethics, I have some good news, bad news. The bad news is there's no one answer. And I think if everybody here on this desk and even in this room is trying to address these. And because we all bring our skill sets, we all wear different hats, but it will take all of us coming together to change these issues because there is no one simple solution. So we have been supporting since 2018 women who work in this field. We have a database with over 800 women who work in this field. This is a response to anyone who says there aren't enough qualified women. It's free, it's online, it's open. There is no excuse. For manels, no excuse. For vanels, like the white-only panels or male-only panels, there's no excuse. Not in 2023 anymore. We've also been publishing an annual list since 2018. We highlight the women in this field, not just the well-known women who are up and coming, because it is hard to be a woman in the tech industry. It's harder to be a woman of color in tech industry. You know what the hardest thing is? To be a woman of color who works on ethics. Because you're slowing down progress. Right? That's what they say. You're trying to build a more equitable world. You're trying to build a more equal world, but there are a lot of folks who think this is slowing things down. And maybe that is what we need to do. We need to slow things down. We need to make sure technological innovation includes all of us, not just a few of us or few of them. It has to be everyone. We launched a mentoring program during the pandemic because there were so many folks who were struggling. They lost their opportunities, they lost their internships, a lot of companies revoked their job offers, and we came together as a community to support each other. A lot of women stepped up. They helped build up these women who lost so many of these opportunities and helped each other. And there is a lot of power in solidarity. When you have each other, you're so much stronger and you can lift each other up. At our events, we have invited a diverse group of women. We don't believe the future is just more engineers or more computer scientists. We want that. We want more diversity, but we also want diversity of backgrounds. We had Dr. Doreen Bogdan-Martin, who spoke at one of our events. She keynoted. We've had Dr. Timnit Gebru, who was fired from Google, by the way, for raising ethical issues. We had Dr. Meredith Whitaker, who was formerly with the FTC as an AI advisor. She's now the CEO of Signal, the encrypted messaging app. We've had folks from ACLU. We've had sex worker organizers, because sex workers are the canary in the coal mine of technology. Every issue that the rest of us face, they are the first ones who have adopted these technologies, and who better to tell us what the pitfalls are. So we look at a cross-section. We believe it's going to take a lot more than just engineers and computer scientists to solve these problems. We will need to support them with the policies, the regulations, funding. We need to do a lot more to support these women. So this, I truly believe, and this is our mission, is that technology impacts all of us. And we all need to have a say in how it's built and how it's deployed. And I'll leave you with these words by author Arundhati Roy. A different world is not only possible, she's on her way. She is on her way. On a quiet day, I can hear her breathe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mia. And last but not least, we'll hear from Karen Orantes, the acting chief of the UN social media team.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here. Very excited to speak to all of you today. We've heard a lot about how technology poses a lot of challenges. We've heard TikTok, we've heard a number of social media platforms spoken about. I want to talk to you about how we're trying to use those same platforms for positive, for good, for advancing the issues of gender equality and so many other social justice issues. So my team runs right now about 38 social media platforms in 9 different languages. Those are all the @United Nations and @UN platforms that you might find in those different languages. And we've got about 65 million followers right now, so we do have a very big platform that we take this responsibility very seriously to really get the message of the UN out there, not least on gender equality. And gender equality for us is not only an issue per se, as in International Women's Day, we talk about CSW, we talk about girls that code, we talk about all these issues, but we also use the gender lens across all other issues. So I want to talk to you a little bit about both our editorial practices and how we put that into practice on a daily basis, and the focuses that we have on our platforms. On the communication strategy side, we have an inclusive communication strategy and very, very strict editorial guidelines for both text content and any visual content. So one of the bigger fights that we've had for a long time, and we've made some progress, is photo guidelines. For example, I challenge all of you to go on @UN right now and find me a photo that doesn't have a woman in it. This has been something that hasn't been easy because, as much as we have the Secretary General as a very strong advocate for gender equality and a very self-proclaimed feminist, the UN is a very old institution, and we're still fighting against the males, and we're, still trying very, very hard to make sure that there's women in all senior leadership positions, as you've heard the Secretary General said, but also women on all big trips, women in all the big missions, women in peacekeeping. So we've made it our policy that if there's a great picture, even of a great trip of the Secretary General or a great event, we're not going to use it unless there's a woman in it. This is... And not only do we check that there's women in our picture, but we also have a very close look at what roles these women have in those pictures. What's the power balance? Is the women is always the recipients of the UN aid? The women are the people who get from the UN. The women are the people, or even just like me in the communications roles, right? The traditional roles that women have always had in the UN too. We want to highlight the women in the positions of power, both within the UN and as working with the UN, in civil society, in all the other fields. So we've got the women in peacekeeping, we've got the women senior leaders, we've got our Deputy Secretary General, we've got a lot of Undersecretary Generals in traditionally more male sectors, Rosemary DiCarlo in political and peace building. We've got many resident coordinators in field missions, in crisis situations. And those are the things that people are not so used to seeing that we really want to highlight in our accounts, and that's really important to us. And honestly, it's also really getting to a point where that's much easier. A couple of years, that was still harder to find these women. Now there's many more examples of that. So we are working closely with the photographers, with the news teams, with all our other teams to make sure that this is a big focus. Because obviously it's not just a focus for social media, it's a focus for all our global communications departments. Another point I wanted to raise, and that's very important to us, is also knowing our audiences. So we've got 65 million followers, but we also need to know who they are. And we look at that very often, very closely, and we're always surprised because of some platforms. You would think that there's more of a female audience than a male audience. But right now, at least if we look at the statistics, across all our platforms and all our languages, the majority of our followers are men. It's an opportunity. It's something to do with what you have mentioned, Leah, also about, the percentage of men versus women being online. It's also something to do with the statistics, which we're having a closer look at because, again, it's getting better, but it used to be that the platforms skewed male because whenever there wasn't a clear definition, when people wouldn't self-identify as one or the other, the tendency, it would automatically go to male, right? So if you have an overwhelming percentage of men, it might just be an AI tool or an algorithm or a platform estimate that says, oh, those are more men, because where people don't self-identify, platforms sometimes go by behavior. They think if you have a certain behavior on their platform that they can guess if you're a man or a woman. We all know that there's a long wrong with that to begin with, right? So we have these numbers. We look at the numbers, but we take them with a grain of salt. And we try to find ever new platforms and ever new ways to reach female audiences and to reach them more, and also to use AI tools in our favor. And again, we are all aware of the pitfalls and the challenges of a lot of these tools, but we think that that's all the more reason why we need to be there, why we need to be on these platforms, why we need to use these tools to forward our agenda as well. And another thing that's very important for us is to use, of course, any opportunity we get to feature women in international days. I mean, we have a lot. You mentioned girls and women in ICT. We have, of course, International Women's Day now. We have an FGM Day, Women's History Month. Women, and we just had International Day of Women Judges. So all of those are good opportunities to highlight it. But again, like I said, we want to see it as a red thread throughout. Whenever we talk about conflict, the role of women in conflict, and the role of women in peace building and peacekeeping, the role of women in crisis, the role of women in climate, the role of women in the water crisis, both as the victims and also as part of the solution to all of these crises. Indigenous women, young women, issues like child marriage, of course, all of those run throughout our editorial calendar and are issues that we want to highlight throughout. And then, of course, we've got the Secretary General, like I said, as one of our biggest spokespeople on gender issues, a very self-proclaimed feminist, and we're working very hard to show his vision and to share his vision with our 65 million followers, and also to show it's not a women's issue, right? It's so important to have men speaking out on gender equality, and not just on. I have my colleague here who's also seeing this Women's Day, and one of the top comments we get every year across every platform, but when is it Men's Day? You know, it's exactly every other day of the year, exactly. So those are just some of the issues that we want to highlight, and where we want to also use social media as a two-way communication to engage with people. Not just to throw out our messages, but to say, yes, we hear you. Yes, there is Men's Day, and yes, you know, this is not just a women's issue. We need everybody on board. We have a lot of male spokespeople on this issue as well. And then, of course, we see our accounts not only as highlighting our content, as in the Secretary General and whatever happens here at the Secretariat, but also content from across the UN system. People come to the UN, and they don't think that UNICEF is actually across the street, and, you know, UNFPA is separate, and oops, sorry. Didn't mean to attack you with my pen there. UNHCR is separate, but we want to highlight content from across the system. And there's so much good gender content out there, not only UN Women and, of course, UNFPA, but, you know, campaigns from, say, UNESCO on careers have no gender, or the world needs science and science needs women, you know, content like policies on parental leave from ILO. So content from across the UN system is very important to us to highlight and to really bring to our followers, and to use those platforms that we have to speak to those 65 million people and hopefully many more to really get the message out there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. We've been asking how we get more women and girls into STEM careers. First stage. STEM studies. Well, we have 3 examples. We'd like Dr. Johnson to call some of her young women from Black Girls Code up to the front to tell us about what they've been doing. This is really the future. Welcome, ladies.
Sorry about that.
Somebody like to go down to the end? You can.
You can actually do it from your desk where they're seated. Unless you want to come down here. They can do it from their desk, but one person can come here.
I'll go down.
Yeah, you'll still be on camera. It's better to do it from your desk. I'll show you how to do it.
Okay, so wait, get
Where
back.
is it?
We have been hearing that Black Girls Code. Now we're going to hear how.
Hi, my name is Madison Clark. I've been a part of Black Girls Code since I was in the first grade. Black Girls Code has helped me become more Thank you. Black Girls Code has helped me become more confident in myself, made me believe in myself. Anybody who has told me I cannot, Black Girls Code has told me multiple times I can. A couple years ago, I rang the bell at the New York Stock Exchange, which was an amazing experience. And meeting people and like these ladies here, it's a family at the end of the day. And being a part of a family and such a close group is so impactful and so important, especially being a young Black woman in today's society. Like you guys said, women and being a woman in general is hard enough because we're told we can't or the room is not for us. And I believe Black Girls Code has really, really, really told me you can, no matter what your skin color, being a woman, it doesn't matter. You can do anything you put your mind to, and you are important, you are impactful, and you can do anything you want.
The goal is equality. It isn't to tear down men so that women can succeed. And if that's the way you're thinking, then you need to re-listen to what the message is. The message is so that we all are lifting each other. We all lift as we climb. A thing that was coined by a radio colleague, that we should lift as we climb. And if we all do that, we will see so many more amazing things happen in our human lives that we will you might notice in the last few decades that the human race has started to stagnate and maybe even struggle a little bit more, simply because we haven't really done anything that exciting. There have been some exciting things in a couple of fields, but nothing like really eye-opening to all of us as a group of human beings. Something like maybe reaching the moon, or that first TV show, or the first radio show where voices were heard around the world, where that first satellite broadcast, where a single person could now be heard in multiple countries all at the same time. So when's that new thing going to actually come? And the only way we can ensure that as the human race can keep climbing the ladders, climbing technology, and finding new plateaus to succeed from, the only way we're going to do that is if we all find equality and stop thinking that he's going to take something or she's going to take something from me and I better keep it well guarded. We need to be willing to share, and we need to be willing to lay all ideas out on the table and look at all ideas that are on the table for their merits, not because, well, he looks like me, so I should pay attention to his idea. Well, she doesn't look like me. I'm gonna ignore her. She's nothing, because she doesn't look like me. We need to start getting hatred and bigotry out of our minds and putting equality and love in our minds so that we all can achieve. Thank you for listening to Policy and Race on Depictions Media Radio. I've been your host, and I ask you at this time to click on that subscribe button to keep getting continued messages and information that we share. This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.